David Soldani, or Dr. David Soldani. Welcome to Huawei's Let's Talk podcast.
Thank you, and for this great opportunity to share with you some ideas.
Yeah. Now, just so our listeners and viewers know, your background quickly, you're the Chief Cybersecurity Officer here in Australia, but before that, you were Huawei's Head of Research and Development in Europe. Your expertise is 5G. You have many 5G patents. But today we're not particularly talking about 5G. We're going to talk about network security, because this is coming up as a big theme around cybersecurity and the importance of whether it be 4G, 5G networks, the network security aspects. And I guess what people are worried about is the abilities for foreign states or terrorist organisations or very, very big organised crime to shut down networks. So let's talk about, you've made a submission to the government's 2020 cybersecurity strategy. What was your key sort of recommendation to the government? This was an opportunity for us to advise the government, industry.
Yes, correct. So we answered to the public consultation on the 2020 Australia's cybersecurity strategy, and we thank the government to give us this, and others, of course, this opportunity to provide inputs. And so we contributed to the answer to the public consultation by exploring what were the main actions ongoing globally, as cybersecurity is a global issue, and by exploring, in particular, analysing the conclusions that were drawn in the UK within the European Commission, so within the 27 or 28 member states, and in particular in Germany and France, we drew up to our conclusions on 5 key points.
So what are those 5 key points?
So the first, they were coming out from the committees in the UK, so the recommendation to the government in the UK now basically adopted, or first was about the reduction of the over-dependency on any one vendor. And this is necessary for the network resiliency. So that means if you have all equipment from one vendor, it's like putting all eggs in one basket. So the network cannot be considered resilient. So that's the first thing. The second
and sorry, just stop you on that point, because that was a big point that they were making. In fact, they were even critical that there was only 3 major vendors for 5G.
Right.
You know, part of their policy is to encourage far more vendors into that space. So the mindset is changing, because you go back 5, maybe 10 years ago, there was sort of a belief that one vendor was the safest option for network security, because you didn't have the problems of 2 companies trying to negotiate each other through a network. That mindset's changed?
Yes, it's completely changed in a way that the main issue to be addressed and resolved is network resiliency. So the resiliency means that the network has to be able to detect and respond immediately to any kind of attack, threat. And by diversifying the supply chain, it is the easiest and most effective measure we can have in place. For example, by having multiple vendors, it's easy to swap from one to another or ensure the separation between network domains. Like, for example, placing Huawei in the RAN will make sure that RAN is completely separated from core network, because there is no way that our base station can penetrate into a core network or another vendor. That allows us to separate the network domain and therefore having full control.
But what the UK was saying, and my understanding is that the EU is also saying that you should even split it further from just core and RAN multiple vendors, that you maybe in the RAN have several vendors as well.
Yeah, now there is a trend of a few initiatives. One of those is Open RAN, is where to look into the radio access network architecture and explore all possible interfaces that could be open. So by open and separating within the RAN the different domain or the protocol stack, would even increase the diversification of the supply chain within that particular domain. And therefore, it's much easier to confine, isolate, and mitigate anything that could happen in that particular part of the radio access network.
We might dedicate a special podcast to virtual RAN. But anyway, let's
Yes.
move on. So what else was the recommendations in our submission to the government?
So the submission and our submission in short, we gave 5 key points. So first, as I mentioned earlier, is the reduction of the overdependency on any one vendor. So we need to diversify the supply chain to ensure network resiliency. The second was about competition. So we need to ensure and we need to have the same level playing field so that we are getting massive investments and attract especially mitigation measure on cybersecurity. With the lack of competition means prioritization of commercial interests. So that means vendors and the carriers will not invest. And when they don't invest, the first thing they tend to cut is exactly cybersecurity. So that was the second point. The third point, we advocate for transparency. So that means practically we shall trust nothing, right? We shall trust anything, and we should ensure that anything that is introduced into the network is assessed a priori, so that we make sure that any kind of possible vulnerability is identified before the introduction of the network element in the network. Then we also said that it is essential to have in place a way of certifying the equipment. The certification is very much linked to action ongoing within the industry, so the GSMA and 3GPP into the assurance scheme. So we say we could look into introducing equipment following the certification. Therefore, the point number 5 is to ensure compliance.
Yep.
And compliance is to laws, standards, and the regulatory frameworks. That's basically in short.
One set of rules for everyone.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which, of course, goes to something we've been saying, that you can't have policies based around a flag of origin, because we're all got a global supply
exactly.
chain.
The flag of origin is also nicely reviewed and discussed within the literature we are referring to in our submission, and comes from the UK. So it is also in the UK demonstrated, together with the results and analysis of the study published by the European Commission, that the flag of origin, it is not a major concern. Now, looking at the threats and the corresponding penetration that happen in the network, and that is an analysis across several years in Europe, they found out that the main problem due to external interference, they were from country to equipment not made within the same country. Yes, that's an evidence that was also reported, not only in the UK, but also by the European Commission.
So those agents that are wanting to shut down networks are not doing it through the hardware or software, but through external forces.
Yeah, exactly. So it's much easier.
And that goes back to your point 1, is the more vendors you have in the network, that if they can do it to one, then the chances are it's going to be harder to do it to the other.
Absolutely.
But,
it is demonstrated that it is easier to penetrate equipment made other countries than the one you're having within your country for many reasons.
Well, excellent, David. Well, so the link to the submission is on the below this podcast, so people can go to it, come to our website, the Let's Talk website, and our Let's Talk LinkedIn page. But David, this is going to be the first of many that you're going to be on these sort of podcasts. But thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me.